I am Dr. Bhabani Mallia. Today I am going to discuss about data collection and processing in marketing research, how important is data collection process and how to process the data we should discuss in this chapter. So the contents of this topic is introduction, then second is research designs. Under that, how many research designs are there, it is mentioned, meaning and importance of it, then causality of the research design, like the basis of classification of various types of research designs. These are exploratory research design, descriptive research design, factors influencing experimental validity, then experimental designs, and then summary of the topic. So after the covering of this chapter, we will be able to explain the concept and importance of research design in the context of marketing research problems. Then we can discuss the causality factor in the context of research design. Then we can describe the various types of research designs and to apply the learned concept in different research situations. So, a research design is a framework or a blueprint for conducting a marketing research project. So, it details the procedures necessary for obtaining the information needed to structure or solve marketing research problems. Although a broad approach to the problem has already been developed, the research design specifies the details, or you can say a research design lays the foundation of conducting the project, or you can say without a good research design we cannot perform a marketing research, or we cannot conduct a marketing research project. So, in this unit, various types of research designs are discussed. Along with that, the marketing situations in which they could be most effectively used, it has also mentioned in this chapter. Under research design, meaning and importance, which is the second part of this chapter, we can discuss how to define the information needed and the design the exploratory, descriptive or causal phase of research. Then after defining the research design, we can go for specify the measurement and scaling procedure, so which can be able or which can help us to construct and pre-test a questionnaire, or we can say intervene forms or an appropriate form for the data collection, which is most relevant after the framing the research design. That is also specify the sampling process and the sample size. After that, we can develop a plan for the data analysis. So, mainly the purpose of the research design is to make sure that the necessary data for the problem at hand is precisely and efficiently collected. Simply said, it is the framework for the research study or a map that directs data collection and analysis. So, depending upon the purpose of the researcher, the research design may be a very detailed statement, or it may merely provide the bare minimum of data needed to be planned for the research study. So, in research design, so that should be provide or should be in sufficient that at least the following information to be effective. So the following information means a statement of the objectives of the study, or you can say the what will be your research output. Second is a statement of the data inputs required for the basis on the basis of which the research problem is to be solved, or we can say the research questions. Then the third one is the analytical methods to be applied to the data inputs in order to process the analyze them. So we must know what is the research objective, then how the research objective will be converted to the statement of the research problem, then the analytical method which to be applied in the data collection that need to be analyzed. So a recently opened supermarket offers a wide selection of product. It is a situation of market research. So we can say from food of kitchenware or household appliance. It is available in that supermarket. So the general manager of sales thinks that increasing people's purchase in larger quantity can increase the supermarket's overall profitability, which might be done by providing all customers with attractive cash discounts, or we can say the other executives have their doubts about this. So the objective is to determine the margin earned on sales when this discount is offered and compare it with the margin earned when the discount is not offered. So there are two situations. When the supermarket is offering the discounts, or you can say that whatever may be the discount, it may be cash discount or anything, that discount situation or the situation where that discount is not offered. Then the second one is the data to be collected over a period of time. So we should not say that data is there to be collected. It means we can collect it at any time at our wish. But it is should not be as because there is a period of time for the research, or you can say for the marketing research. So in that stipulated period, we have to complete the data collection. Then, sales in rupees to a selected sample of customers during the period when the discount is offered. It is another situation that the data we are collecting, we should be confirmed that what time and what is the sales rupees and what are the customers which are coming under our sample that to be needed. And the research design aids in providing direction to the computation and interpretation processes at the analysis and interpretation stages as well. So, enabling the development of recommendations on solutions, this is not meant to imply that a design is a fixed constant that a study must always abide by. So the research design simply reflects an expectations of likely cost outcomes, but as the investigation progresses, many unexpected outcomes may surface, necessitating the formulation of new hypotheses or at the very least changing some of or some existing hypotheses. So coming to the different kind of or different types of research design, or we can say the third part of the chapter, that is causality, the basis of classifications of various types of research design. As we can see here, there are four types of research design. So the first research design is exploratory research design, which gives us the scope or to time to explore the data, explore the knowledge about the research or the project on which we are working. Then second one is descriptive research design, which says actually the series tells the meaning of this research design that after exploration the description is possible. Means once we explore the knowledge about the project or the research problem, then only we can be able to describe the research design. Then third one is quasi experimental design, and the fourth one is experimental design, which has been discussed in the coming slides. Coming to the exploratory research design, the purpose of exploratory research is generally to examine and evoke a research problem based on the provided situation and to generate insights for further examination by the researcher. So, all marketing research studies should ideally begin with exploratory research, as I said, to explore the knowledge, to explore the idea, or to know about the situation. It helps in providing a safer focus in the situation and a clear definition of the problem at hand. So, the exploratory research design emphasizes the finding of ideas and potential insights that may help in identifying areas for more in depth study. For example, before truly defining the product concept, A food product producer who wants to introduce a breakfast cereal may wish to know that the desirable attributes of such a product. So it's for in this case we can say that a producer should have the adequate knowledge about that product, what are the ingredient or what is the requirement of this product in the market. So the main objective of the exploratory research is to fine tune the broad problem into a specific problem statement and generate possible hypotheses. As we have already discussed the research problem, we are going to solve here in the marketing research or marketing research problem we are here to solve, but the direct research problem cannot be tested. It means to test that problem, we need to frame some hypothesis. So before framing the hypothesis, we have we have an adequate knowledge about that problem statement so that we can be able to formulate the hypothesis, or we can formulate the objectives, and after that we can generate the hypothesis from the objective. So the following are the primary objectives of the exploratory research design. The first one is defining a research problem. As we said, the first and foremost step is to defining a research problem, which is only possible in the exploratory research design. And then after identifying the problem, then we will go for identifying various courses of action. If this is the problem, what should be the action for the solution of this problem, then it will be identified. Then creating of prepositions and hypothesis, what we said, after that the position came for hypothesis. Then identify primary variables and their interrelationships. After that, in the fifth points are objectives is developing an approach for the problem, then suggesting priorities for future research in the domain. So it means that exploratory research is useful when the researcher lacks a clear understanding of the problem before the commencement of the research. So before entering into the research, one first step is the exploratory research design, which help us to gather knowledge about the research problem or to able to concise or to be precise the research problem into a problem statement. So we can say an exploratory process is flexibility as the formal research methods mandated in a particular type of research situation in not pre-specified in this case. Now coming to the planning of the research design. So typically exploratory research may involve the following methods, that is expert interviews, pilot surveys, qualitative analysis of case studies, qualitative analysis of secondary data, or you can say literature review, qualitative consumer research. Under that it is covering focus groups, depth interviews, projective techniques. So what are the methods I discussed or I just read, the five methods of that is coming under research design? We cannot say that in a research project all fives are required to apply or to get knowledge or to explore knowledge about that situation. It is depends upon the situations in which, suppose there is a situation only expert interviews give me adequate knowledge about the situation, so there is no need of going to any other methods or any kind of secondary source. But sometimes it requires, some situations are there, some research problems are there, we may require either minimum 4 to 5 methods to be applied, then only we are becoming able to understand the research problem as well as to able to define our research problem. Coming to the descriptive research design, as we say, after getting the knowledge, after exploring the knowledge or idea about the situation, we are able or we are in a condition to describe the things. So in this case, we can say The design is preliminary used for preliminary studies to make it easier to describe population parameter and draw conclusions about how two or more variables interact with one another. So in exploratory research, we find out our variables, or we can say we explore. Then in descriptive research design, we are describing or we are saying that these are the variables which to be studied or which are interacting, or these are the main variables. This should be expressed. So the nature of the description or interface may be qualitative or it may be quantitative. So descriptive designs mainly aim to establish a relationship between the elements while describing the event being studied. So the information gathered could be characterizes of the respondents and the studies. For example, a descriptive research methodology can be appropriate to access a training program, retail situations, or the various attributes of effective salespeople. So the research design is good for studying consumer behavior in response to a new sales promotion. However, it fails to establish the degree of association between variables like income, age, and a consumer's response to the promotion. While this descriptive design cannot quantify these relationships, it can be used to infer potential connections between the different variables. So descriptive research designs are very common. Perhaps the most common type of research design we can say. So in short, we can say descriptive research can be used for the following approaches, like to describe the characteristics of certain groups of interest to make to the marketers, or that is users of the product, potential users, non-users, possible receivers, a promotional communication by the company, and so on. In these cases, we can go for descriptive research design. The second one, we can say that to estimate the proportion of the people in a given population who behave in a certain way. For example, the proportion of consumers who are prone to deals, or to make specific predictions for specified future periods, or to make inferences about whether certain variables such as income and shopping location preferences or related issues are there. So primary objective of descriptive research, we can say, to create a description of something which is usually the characteristics of the market variables or the consumers. So we can discuss the example here to describe the percentage of proportion of units in a specific consumer market, showcasing a specific behavior of sharing a common individual characteristics. An example of such descriptive study will be to calculate the percentage of shoppers at a departmental store who shop for more than one day in a week to be characterized as heavy shoppers. So in that case, we need to find out what are the variables, what are the things are here actually interfacing or interacting that need to be discussed. And second is to examine the consumer perception of the characteristics of the product or service characteristics. As an example, we can say such a descriptive study will be perception of Reliance Smart Bazaar being conveniently located amongst the heavy shoppers of the places. Then coming to the cross-sectional design. So the aim of this design is to take a one-time survey of the situation or phenomenon under interest of the decision maker. A depiction of the condition at a certain period can be obtained using cross-sectional design. A cross-sectional design might be used to collect data for example, if the marketer is interested in knowing how the firm stands in the market relative to its competitors, or how many viewers overall remember the company's advertisement. So this type of design gives a cross section of the issue, since the information gathered is based on replies from a sample that includes a wide range of sources. So in a variety of marketing contexts, research cross-sectional data is helpful. So we can give an example for that cross-sectional research design. That is, a company of instant food has given display racks to its retailers so that they can prominently showcase their product. So before starting a second round of the distribution of these racks, the company wants to ascertain how many merchants and what kinds of retail outlets are actually utilizing the racks. So in this case, a company that manufactures electronics goods wants to access how well its consumer respond to its high quality after sale service. So in this situation, the company can collect the data or will collect the data once a time. So these are the situations which coming under cross-sectional research design. Then the longitudinal research design. In this design, these research designs track the same sample over time. So administering the questionnaires at multiple points to observe trends and changes in variables, we are taking the help of longitudinal research design. Unlike a cross-sectional studies that is collection of data at once a time, that is which provides a single snapshot of a population at one moment, a longitudinal study allows researchers to compare an individual's responses over time. So this makes it ideal for measuring changes in things like brand perceptions, and it's the key difference between seeing what is happening now and understanding how things are evolving. So another terms used longitudinal design and is panel design. So since the panel consists of individuals who have registered with a research firm and have agreed to provide responses to questionnaire over a period of time for any study where they qualify as respondents. So their panel members are generally compensated for their participations, and such remuneration can range from gifts, discounts, coupons, or it may be cash credit. So panel design uses fixed sample of respondents like customers or dealers to collect the data repeatedly over time. This method accounts for dropouts and to ensure the sample remains representative and stable. By continuously measuring variables, researchers can understand response patterns and even predict future behavior. So, the longitudinal research approach allows multiple conclusions about how the panel members act, such as their changing attitudes towards a new package design or an advertisement that can be studied in longitudinal research design. Coming to the focus group, it is also one method of collection of data. That is a focus group, which has an informal approach, is gathering a group of people to engage in an extensive, free flowing discussion about their experiences of viewpoints. So, focus group discussions are common research methods where conversations are recorded and later analyzed. A moderator guides the discussion to maintain a relaxed atmosphere and keep the group on topic. So the primary goal of this design is exploratory, aiming to gather diverse opinions and experiences on a specific subject. While the research objectives are clear and the discussion itself is internationally unstructured and free flowing. This allows for a deeper understanding of participants' thoughts rather than just getting structured responses. So, an established toilet soap manufacturer wishes to alter his advertising theme for a prestigious brand of soap so as to strengthen its image as a luxury soap by focusing on a group of young women, including college students, housewives, and some executives. A freewheeling discussion about expectations from toileters in general and bath soap in particular was generated and recorded in order to provide useful ideas and insights for the creative strategy and to be used for the advertising theme. Coming to the factors influencing experimental and experiments and validity. So there are two important concepts of validity that are related to experimentation. One is internal validity, second one is external validity. So in internal validity, we can say it means no other plausibly cause of the observed results should exist except those tested. This is a basic minimum, the minimum that should be present in an experiment before any conclusion about treatments can be made. So the presence of the other extraneous factors or the absence of internal validity makes the experiments confounded. External validity, it relates to the questions of generalization of the results obtained from the experiments. Would like to know that if the experiment's findings can be exploited to what population, what geographical area, and so on. These are called external validity. Although we would want to experiment to satisfy both internal and external validity, it is not uncommon to find experiments that meet all the internal validity requirements but are invalid externally. So this could possibly happen because of the following reasons. The first reason is the environment at the time of the test may be different from the environment of the real world where the decisions are taken. Second is the results obtained in a 6-week test may not hold up in an application of say 12 months. And the third one is the population used for experimentation in the test may not be similar to the population where the results of the experiments could be applied. And the last but not the least, the treatments in the test may be different from those used in the real world. Now coming to the seventh research design, that one is quasi-experimental research design. In order to facilitate the discussion in quasi-experimental design and experimental design, these are the following systems or notations we can use. We are generally using in the quasi-experimental research designs. The first term is notation is X. What is X? Now it represents the exposure of a test group to an experimental treatment whose effect is to be observed or measured. That is X. Then O. O refers to the measurement or observation of the dependent variable on the test unit. Suppose more than one observation or measurement is taken. For example, so the description will be O1, O2 and O3. So O stands for the measurements or we can say the observation. Will be used indicating the temporal order. Third, R. R symbolizes that individuals have been selected at random to separate treatment groups or groups have been allocated at random to separate treatments. Then coming to the fourth one, movement from left to right indicates a time sequence of the events. Fifth one is all notations in one row indicates that subjects belongs to that specific treatment group. So in these designs, the researcher has control over the data collection procedures, but lacks control over the scheduling of the treatments and also lacks the ability to randomize test units exposures to treatment. So there are various designs that fall under the category of quasi-experimental designs. Some of which will be discussed here. So these designs have an inherent weakness about their internal validity is questionable. They lack the control attributes of truly experimental designs, and the following quasi-experimental designs are mentioned here. We will discuss in these sections, that is after only without control group, before after without control group, and the third one is the static group comparison. Fourth one is longitudinal design, or we can say this time series designs. Let us discuss one by one. Coming to the experimental design, the experimental designs provides a stronger and more reliable basis of the existence of causal relationship between variables. So here the researcher is able to eliminate all extraneous variables from the experimental and control groups through the use of the random selection procedure. So one of the advantages of using a random selection procedure is that we can use inferential statistical techniques for the analysis of experimental results. So one such techniques is the analysis of variance, which is popularly known as ANOVA, and the following experimental designs will be discussed in this section. It also contains after only with one control group, before after with one control group, the Solomon 4 group design, the fourth one is completely randomized design, then fifth one is randomized design, which is known as RBD, then Latin square design, which is known as LSD. Under experimental design, there are 6 designs coming under that. So discussing the after only with one control group, here two groups are experimental and one control group. So we have settled that X are O1 and O2. That is O1 and O2 we had said, that is measurement or observed, and the design requires only one treatment, and post-test measurement of both experimental and the control groups is required. So the research design may be written symbolically as vertically we have written experimental group. You can see here experimental group, under group how many, what are the things. Now R is there, X is there, and O1 is there, and as it is mentioned one control group. So in under control group we have mentioned only R and O2. So in our previous slide we have discussed what is O2 and what is X. X represent exposure of the test group, or we can say experimental treatment. So here we can see here X is the experimental treatment, and what is R? R symbolizes that individuals have been selected at random separate treatment groups, and X represents exposure of the test, or you can say the experimental treatment whose effect is to be observed or measured. So this is mentioned clearly here. O1, O2 means two measurements we have here. So it may be noted that the no pre-test measurements are taken in any of the two groups. Here we have two groups, but what we have done now, no, we can say that pre-test measurements are taken in that in any of the two groups, and the difference between the post-test measurement of the two groups is taken as a measure of treatment effect. And here zero measurement is composed of treatment effect and all the other extraneous variables, and zero is composed of extraneous factors. We can clearly see here. It was about after only with one control group. Now second one is before after with one control group. So here in this design may be presented maybe symbolically we can write here that under experimental group we have R, O1, X1 and O2, and under control groups we have R, O3 and O4. So this is also known as a pre-post test design. In this design, two groups, one experiment and one control are set up by a randomized process. Whatever setup we have done here, it is clearly visible over here. It is purely randomized. It is not man-made. We have randomly processed these things, control and experimental experiments, and the extraneous variables operate equally in the experimental and control groups. So pre-test measurements are taken in both groups. However, it is the experimental group that is exposed to the treatment. So post-test we can see here measurements are taken for both the groups. Because why we have done it? Now the extraneous factor affects both groups equally, and the only difference between two groups is due to experimental groups treatment. Now the third one is before after with one control group, the this is also known as pre-post test design. In this design, two groups, one experiment and one controller setup, randomized. However, it is the experimental group that is exposed to the treatment. Post-test measurements are taken for both the groups because the extraneous factors affect both groups equally. And the only difference between these two groups is due to experimental groups treatments. Then our third design under experimental design, that is Solomon four groups research designs, or we can say experimental design. This design is also called the four group six study design. We can see here four things are here: experimental group, control group, experimental groups, two and another control groups are there, and four columns are there. This design is actually a combination of before and after with one control group. And after only with one control group designs, the design is symbolically, I have written here in the right hand side of the slide that experimental groups, under experimental groups who are there, now R is there, O1 is there, X is there, and O2 is also there in the first experimental groups. Then control groups, the first control groups, it contains same R, O3 and O4. In the second experimental groups, same R and O5. So we can easily see here what was there in the before, in the after only, and what was there in the before only. Both are present in the Solomon 4 groups design. Two experimental groups and two control groups. So you may note that the experimental group are two and control group is also true. It did not receive any pre-test measurements. These two to four things do not receive any pre-test measurements because this type of sensitizing cannot occur in measurement of O5. So these results of group 2 assists us in measuring and eliminating the sensitizing testing effect under Solomon 4 group designs. Then the fourth one was completely randomized design. So before going to completely randomized design, we must understand the term randomized. The meaning of the randomized actually came from the random or randomness, which is free from biased any kind of prejudice. So here we are experimenting the things with randomized process which is completely randomized. So this describes an experimental design used to study the effect of one independent variable on a dependent variable. Here in this design we need one dependent variable and one independent variable. The independent variable has multiple categories or treatments such as different price levels. It may be price level may be low price, medium price and high price, and the taste units. Second one is taste units like softs or any other kind of softs are randomly assigned to these treatments. So if a researcher or we are using such kind of taste design or research design, we must be very sure that whatever variables or whatever taste, whatever objects we are taking, that must be assigned in a random basis, purely random. Then after that, we will go for the treatment. The goal is to compare the average sales levels for each treatment to determine which one is most effective and which is not. So this design allows researcher to find the optimal category of the independent variable, such as the best price for a product. So it is only possible, or we can say we can conclude or we can get the outcome most accurately if the total process is completely randomized. If any bias, any prejudice will enter into the process, then we may not get the right conclusion in this completely randomized research design. The fifth one is randomized block design. So the randomized block design is an extension of the completely randomized block design. So in the completely randomized designs, it was assumed that all extraneous factors would have the same impact on all the test units. This may not be true here. So let us take an example to understand that. In the examples used in the completely randomized design, we had three price levels tested in various shops. For example, we did not take into consideration the fact that the differences in the results could be due to the differences in the sizes of the shops. So one could classify various shops on the basis of their sizes as follows. Like we can say small size shops, medium size shops, or we can say large size shops. So size matters here. So in the randomized process, or we can say in the randomized block design, it is possible to separate out the effect of one extraneous factor from the results, thereby providing a clearer picture of the impact of treatments on cells. Now, the sixth one, last but not the least, it is Latin square design, research design, which is the most important under experimental design. The design allows the researcher to control and measure the effect of two extraneous variables on the dependent variable. Here, the two extraneous variables need to be divided into as many categories as the number of levels of the independent variables, that is treatment, is given in the 4.1 table. That is, we can see here in the row we have given packaging having 4 columns and sit each. So I, triple I and IV are the different packagings, four different packaging, and four cities are city 1, 2, 3 and 4. So when I am saying A is coming under first packaging style and one city one, and it is also available in second city and fourth packaging system. That way we have designed the squared manner. We have arranged the packaging and cities, and this design uses analysis of variance. So this table, if you want to get the solution to that problem which we have arranged here, we need to apply here ANOVA, that is analysis of variance techniques, to measure the effect of four different advertising campaigns on product sales. So the campaigns are assigned randomly to a table so that each one appears only once per row and column. We can see here, if you will observe the first row. In first row, I can find A, B, C, D. Second row, B, C, D, A. But we never find any C is repeated twice or D is repeated thrice. No repetition is there in row. The same way, if you will observe the column, first column in packaging, A, B, C, D, then B, C, D, A, or C, D, A, B, third column, fourth column is D, A, B, C. Nowhere I found in row, in either in row nor in column, that the number or the packaging number or city number, packaging number is repeated. It is once only in a row or in a column. So this method allows researcher to isolate and measure the impact of the advertising campaigns while also accounting for two other external variables. So we can see here This Latin square design is different from randomized design and CRD, we can say completely randomized design, as because here more than two things, or we can say four different advertisement campaigns we have taken here, but here we are having some criticality, or we can say some specific situations where we can go for the randomized block design and completely randomized design. So, among all the research design, as we covered here, the experimental design, which is a very scientific one. Why it is scientific one? Because many statistical tools and techniques are required to be used here. After then only some mathematical formulations are there to calculate, or we can say it is purely quantitative in nature. But whereas the exploratory research design and the descriptive research design, it not so mathematical and statistical, you can say, because in because in exploratory research design, which is the fast one, fast research design, we are only explored. So for exploration, no mathematical techniques we are using here. We are just gathering knowledge for collection of data, or enhancing our knowledge about the research project of the research, or the research problem here. But in description, after exploration, we are able to find out what are the variables and objective, or we can say we are identifying our research questions precisely. So in descriptive research, what we are doing, from the research questions or from the research objectives, we are able to find out our research variables. So it is also not a quantitative in nature, but the understanding is most important in the descriptive research design. Then it also the description also gives you another knowledge how to get the solution, or what are the possible way to get the solution for us in that particular problem. Then after that we need to we need to other research design called cross sectional research design or longitudinal research designs. All are having their different unique importance for the research, different research problems. So it is the researcher who will choose the what is the right research design for the given research problem. So we can say here, the with the research design, it is also important to know what are the factors. No doubt, I will get many factors, many variables are there in the my marketing research problem, and I have identified. But suppose I have 30 factors, or we can say, suppose I found 30 variables, but there is, after finding the variables or after identifying the variables, a researcher must have the idea that, or must have the knowledge that, what are the variables or what are the factors that is actually influencing. So that is mentioned in the validity test. So research, in that context, what we came to know, now the different research designs are there. We need to know about them, because only knowing the research design we can be able to apply them in our research problem. And it is also important, as well as the factors who are, or we what are the factors that are influencing the experiments, or what are the validity of the factors, it is also required to be tested. That is called internal validity and external validity. So in this context, another most important experimental design is that the quasi experimental design, which is actually technical, or you can say mathematical. Some representations are there, and it is also required in summarizing or expressing on the quasi experimental research design. And the methods which are coming under the quasi experimental research design, that is after only without control group, before after without control group, the static group comparisons, longitudinal designs, that is coming under time series research designs. These are also repeated here in the experimental design. They are as it is containing 6 different techniques to conduct that experimental design. So, the Solomon 4 group design, which is another quantitative or we can say statistical tools to examining or to experiment the research design, which is quantitative again, and the completely randomized design, and Latin square design, which is another statistical tools and techniques, which is gives us the accurate exactly what conclusions should be drawn in the various variables we have identified, that may be independent variable and that may be dependent variable. We can see here the after only or with one control group experiment group having 3 things, one control group is there. And the same it is here in the before after with one control group, same one group, one experimental group, one control groups. But in Solomon 4 groups design, we can see here it is the combination of before after, before only and after, before and after with one control group. We can see here the first group and the second group. It is the nothing but the combination of before and after group, before and after one control group combinations. So here, what we are saying, we are 2 experimental groups as well as 2 control groups, and the measurement or we can say the notations which we have used here, it is already mentioned or already discussed in our previous slides. In randomized block design also we are having some difficulties to we have to clear about the size or difference of, we have to declare all these things before applying the randomized block design, which is most important as because it is free from all bias and all prejudice of the researcher and the influencer. So no influence or nothing is going to influence or the harm to the research designs. Coming to the Latin square research design, it is another research design which contains more than 2 things. Here in our example also we have taken four cities and 4 packaging systems. As the most important part is no packaging or no cities will be repeated more than once. Only one time we can find any packaging or any city in the table. So such kind of problem will be solved by applying the statistical tools, that is analysis of variance, or we can say the F test. So it is all about the statement or you can say the designs of research, and following a review of the purpose and advantage of the research design, and the discussion concentrates on 4 primary types of research designs, that is exploratory research design, descriptive research design, quasi-experimental research design, and experimental research design. The foundation of this classification is causality or the relationship between the data and the conclusion is to be needed. So the foundation of this classification is causality, or we can say the relationship between the data and the conclusion, we can say. But there are also been discussion on the nature of causality and the need to be measure it. When some causality is there in the research, we need to measure it. Otherwise, if we are ignoring that, then sometimes, or we can say at the end or at the middle of the research, we can find out it was the most important part of the research, but we ignore. So we should not, as a researcher, should not ignore the causality. It should be measured. Then only we will be clear that whether it is really true or we have to consider it, or it is influential or not. And the major design categories and their applications have been described. Specific Subtypes within the measure categories have been also discussed. Under descriptive design, panel design, cross-sectional design and focus groups were discussed. As because descriptive research design, which describes the variables or the situation, is required, or it is only possible when we are considering panel discussion or cross-sectional discussion or any focus group. So these things are coming under the descriptive research design, and the quasi-experimental designs discussed include after only without a control group, before after without a control group, the static group comparisons, and the longitudinal research design and multi-time series design. Under time series design, that CRD, RBD and LSD are coming, which are purely statistical tools and which is actually help us in measuring the research problems. So under the experimental design categories, the designs covered are after only with one control group, before after with one control, Solomon 4 group design and completely randomized design, CRD, randomized block design and Latin square design. So the internal and external validity of the experimental validity, the internal and external validity of the experimental validity of the experiment were also discussed in that chapter. So basically this chapter says about the research design, how important it is, how to understand it, how we will recognize that which research design is applicable for my research problem, what are the variables, what are the subject, what are the research problems, what should be the objectives, and what are the way possible to solve the research problem. Basically research problem basically research, before going to research, a researcher need to collect all kind of problems or all kind of understanding about the problem. Once we will understand, there is a proverb, one understanding of a problem is a half solution. If we will not go for exploratory research, or we can say we will not collect any kind of idea or knowledge about the situation or the problem, and we will enter into the research, then definitely we cannot conclude. For my understanding or for my satisfaction, I can say I have concluded, but really I cannot conclude the research, or I will not reach any kind of solution for that problem. So our problem is to, under the first step is, after the research project or the research problem is assigned to me, then my first step is to exploration. I need to explore about the situation. That will help me to identify the objectives. From the objective, I will find out my hypothesis, or I can say I can frame my hypothesis, which need to be tested, as because the problem statement cannot be tested directly. After that, after the test or after the formulation of hypothesis, then I will go for finalizing the variables. Then that variable will be tested, and that way I can reach my conclusion. So under this design, the most important part is the quasi experimental design and experimental design, which is purely quantitative in nature. Without any statistical tools, we cannot solve this kind of problem. It was all about the unit of data collection. Thank you.